So we are nads deep in smartphone launch season right now, and manufacturer OnePlus is the latest one to spaff out a couple of premium new flagship smartphones, the OnePlus 9 and the 9 Pro, and this is the beefier, meatier, more expensive of the two. You've got all the usual features, including a good bit of OxygenOS action, you've got Snapdragon 888 Smart, you've got a bit of 5G, of course, the obligatory 5G. And the big headline here is that OnePlus has teamed up with Swedish optics expert Hasselblad in order just to fine-tune the optics and hopefully bring the OnePlus 9 series in line with the rest of the flagships out there, the likes of the Samsung Galaxy S21s, the Oppo Find X's, all of that good stuff. So enough waffle, I'm going to whip the OnePlus 9 Pro out of its big red box and take you on a full-on tour of the hardware and the software ahead of my in-depth review. And for more of the latest greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Okay, so let's see what we actually get in the box. So first up, we've got the usual welcome letter, which actually comes with that Hasselblad branding as well. They are going all in with that. Usual never settle mantra. And it's a very familiar sentiment from good old Pete, all about listening to the community and taking that feedback on board. Essentially, it boils down to the OnePlus 9 Pro is the Mutt's nuts. So there's OnePlus 9 Pro in all of its glory. I've got the Morning Mist version. And also in here, you've got your sexy condom case. As you can see, it's not your typical boring transparent effort. It's actually great to match that morning mist colour on the back of the OnePlus 9 Pro. You've also got an absolute monster of a power adapter with Warp Charge 65T support. And your usual extremely red Type-C to Type-C USB charging cable. And that's everything that you get in the box. So now let's check out this mighty morpho itself, the OnePlus 9 Pro. And first impressions are very standard sort of design for OnePlus, nothing revolutionary here. It's Gorilla Glass plate in front and back. Unfortunately, the pre-release specs didn't say which version of Gorilla Glass. The 8T was Gorilla Glass 5, so it might be the same. Hopefully it's been updated as 6 though. Now you'll be able to pick up the OnePlus 9 Pro in 3 different colours. The 2 base models are the Pine Green and the Stellar Black, which I've now referred to as Silla Black in no less than 2 takes because my brain is basically mincemeat by this point. And both those models come with 8 gigs of memory and 128 gigs of storage. Whereas this right here is the Morning Mist model, and this is the more premium of the 3 devices. It comes with more memory and more storage, 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. And as you can hopefully make out there, it is a silver finish on the back, but it is more of a frosted finish up top, whereas you've got more of a glossy finish down below, and it's kind of a gradient effect between the two. Or as OnePlus put it, it's like fog on a mirror fading away. Yeah, fair enough. Of course, one problem with having the glossy bit right at the bottom here is that that's the bit that you actually hold, and that's the bit that's going to inevitably get lots of greasy, mucky fingerprints all over it. The OnePlus 9 Pro is 197 grams, so it's got decent heft to it, but it's not like crazy heavy like some of those premium flagship smartphones. And as well as the Gorilla Glass plate in front and back, you've also got an aluminium frame in between the middle, just sandwiched between the two. And you've also got full IP68 water and dust resistance. And no real other surprises here. You've got a return of that alert slider over here just above the power button, which was of course culled for the OnePlus Nord cheaper models. Got your volume rocker around the other side. No headphone jack, of course, which I don't think anyone was expecting anyway. So without further ado, let's get the OnePlus 9 Pro all set up, and then we can take a proper full-on tour of the rest of the phone. Oh, and of course, no real surprises when it comes to the SIM tray either. It is a double-sided dual SIM effort, but of course no space for microSD memory cards as usual. Okay, OnePlus 9 Pro all set up, nice quick and easy setup, and of course what you've got here is the latest Android 11 OS as you would expect, with a good bit of OxygenOS 11.2 slathered on top, just adding a few bonus features. So everyone's favourites are here, including of course the good old shelf, which you can drag down like so. I kind of preferred it when it was off to the side instead of the Google feed, just as an alternative there, because I always prefer to dive into the home settings, and instead of swiping down to access the shelf, I like to swipe down to access the notifications. Because let's face it, the OnePlus 9 Pro is an absolute freaking beast. There's no way my stubby little thumbs are reaching all the way up to the top of that goddamn display. But I do get on really well with OxygenOS. As I say, I like the fact that it's got that nice sort of stock Android vibe, just with a, a bit of a tweak to the menus, to the icons, just to give it more of a OnePlus vibe. The menus are generally well suited to one-handed use because everything tends to be sort of crunched down towards the bottom edge, which is definitely a bonus. And OnePlus hasn't taken liberties with the menus. Everything's nicely laid out. It's not an absolute cluster like it is on ColorOS and some alternatives. Your one-stop shop for personalizing your phone is the customization section, which allows you to play around with those icon packs, colors, fonts, desktops, everything, just to get it looking exactly the way you want it. Got a good variety of the usual funky wallpapers that you can play around with, all kinds of different colors and random things. Otherwise, you can have a black and white line drawing of your own mug if you fancy it. as I prefer just go with my usual anime shenanigans, don't want to break the mold. There's also the usual ambient display shenanigans, and you've got a variety of these that you can choose from. And yes, the Horizon notifications light is back in action as well, with a small selection of colours you can choose from. As for the security, well, it's no real change there. You've once again got an in-display fingerprint sensor housed right at the bottom of this mighty display. You'll see a little indicator pop up once you tap that screen, and this seems very, very responsive as usual. And once again, backed up with a good bit of face unlock action too, just in case your mitts are a bit greasy or grubby or something. And like the fingerprint sensor, that face recognition seems to be super, super nippy. In fact, it's faster than a cheetah on crack. You don't even see the lock screen. But all the other usual features are, of course, present and correct. You've got NFC for your contactless payments. You've got UFS 3.1 storage on here. As I mentioned, this is the 256 gig model, although the base models do come with 128, of course, not expandable, unfortunately, via micro SD as usual. As for that whopper of a 6.7-inch display, well, it's an AMOLED panel and no real surprises here. The Pro model sports a Quad HD Plus resolution, 3216 by 1440 pixels. So as you can imagine, nice fine crisp detail when you're browsing your photos or just kicking back with a flick. You got full HDR10+ support as usual, so you can stream your HDR goodness on the likes of Netflix and other streaming services that support it. And if you dive on into the OxygenOS display settings, frankly, there is a plethora of different options that you can play around with in here. It can be quite daunting if you haven't used a OnePlus smartphone before. You've got various features which seem to do a very similar thing, the likes of comfort tone, which can automatically adjust the screen temperature just to sort of match your surroundings. But then you've also got the likes of the vision comfort and the reading mode. You've also got various features to just boost the colors on the display as well, make them look extra vibrant and vivid, which I certainly recommend if you're a fan of animation and anime like I am. You get some really nice punchy images. And yeah, on the Pro model of the OnePlus 9, that screen does curve ever so gently around the edge of the device. Not quite as bad as previous generations, but obviously that will be irksome to gamers and the like. So you might want to look at the regular OnePlus 9 where it is a completely flat display. Certainly no qualms when it comes to, the viewing angles. The brightness tops off at 1300 nits on the Pro model, so again, nice and bright and punchy in your face. So some would be absolutely fine for outdoor viewing. As with other previous OnePlus flagship phones, there's a stereo speaker output here on the OnePlus 9 Pro. Let's boost up that volume and see what you got. And Katie Price's daughter was banned from TikTok. I mean, Jesus, maybe TikTok isn't such a shower of shit after all. And it's not bad on that maximum volume. A little bit of distortion, but, reasonably clear. And at least it's pretty loud on top volume as well, so you'll be able to clearly hear what is going on. You've got a nice bit of Dolby Atmos tuning, which as you can see is set to dynamic by default, so it will just adjust the audio output to suit what you're doing, watching a movie, listening to tunes, or whatever. As for Bluetooth 5.2 support with usual LDAC, aptX, all that good stuff supported as well, but as I mentioned before, no headphone jack, so it is Bluetooth or a bit of Type-C dongly action. Ugh. Now, no surprises on the performance front. You've got Qualcomm's mighty Mega Balls Snapdragon 888 chipset packed in here, backed by either 8 or 12 gigs of DDR5 RAM, so nice and nippy. This is the 12 gig model, had absolutely no worries blazing through Genshin Impact on those top detail settings at 60 frames per second. A couple of tiny little drops in frame rate I noticed as we were dodging about the place, but that's pretty standard for a Snapdragon 888 chipset even, because this is one hella demanding game. The display offers up a good bit of 360Hz touch sampling, so every poke and swipe is instantly registered basically. And you've got the usual gaming tools as well, although I say the usual, you don't actually have the Fnatic mode anymore. That collaboration must have come to an end. So now it's just a pro gaming mode that can block notifications, dedicate all the resources to the game, yada yada. And OnePlus has packed in the usual cooling tech as well. You've got an even bigger vapor chamber than previous generations and 5 layers of graphite. I did notice that the smartphone heated up considerably when I was charging it and gaming at the same time, but again, that's fairly standard. As long as you're not charging it at the same time, it stays perfectly respectably warm-ish. And of course, with the Snapdragon 888, you've got Qualcomm's built-in X60 5G modem as well, so a good bit future-proof in there, full Wi-Fi 6 support. And then on the battery front, it's a 4,500 milliamp cell, so hopefully should keep you going all day. And when it comes to recharging, the bugger as well should be nippy as out. You've got 65T warp charge support, so 65 watt wired charging, charges up in bugger all time. We're talking like half an hour using that warp charge plug, and it's job done, even from a completely drained battery. And you've also got support for 50 watt wireless wireless charging. So again, under an hour on a supported wireless charging pad, job done. So now let's turn our attention to the OnePlus 9 Pro's camera tech. And as you can see, it's actually got the Hasselblad branding right there on the camera itself. So OnePlus has clearly taken this collaboration very seriously indeed. So apparently this collaboration is going to be a 3-year partnership, at least to begin with. But for right now on the OnePlus 9 series smartphone, all that Hasselblad has really done is help to fine-tune the color output. They haven't actually had any input on the actual hardware or any of those bits, but apparently that will be coming with future OnePlus handsets. So the primary shooter on the OnePlus 9 Pro is a 48 megapixel Sony IMX789 custom sensor with built-in optical image stabilization. You will get a 12 megapixel image by default when you hit that shutter button, using 4-in-1 pixel binning just to help brighten up the scene, etc. But you can jump to the full 48 megapixel resolution like so. That's only recommended in very well lit scenes though. And apparently the sound that the OnePlus 9 makes when you hit that shutter button is the trademark Hasselblad leaf shutter sound. Very, very nifty. As well as that 48 megapixel primary lens, you've also got a 50 megapixel ultra wide angle lens here on the OnePlus 9 Pro 5G. That's using the Sony IMX766 sensor, and it uses the same anti-distortion tech for the edges as the Oppo Find X3 Pro, which I recently reviewed. And as usual, the OnePlus 9 Pro also serves up a telephoto lens as well with a 3.3 times optical zoom, as you can see there. And this has got built-in OIS as well, just to help keep everything nice and steady when you're shooting from a distance, and you can keep on punching in there all the way up to 30 times digital zoom. And eagle-eyed viewers among you will have noticed, of course, there's a quad lens setup here on the OnePlus 9 Pro. That's because you've also got a simple 2 megapixel monochrome lens just to help out with your black and white shots. Got all the usual bonus camera modes on here, including, of course, good old portrait mode. You can have a slightly more pulled out view, like so, using the ultra wide angle lens. You've got that Nightscape 2.0 mode to help out when it's really low light. And you've got the Pro mode as well, which apparently Hasselblad has been helping out with. And the Pro mode, it captures JPEGs by default, but you can change that to 12-bit RAW images if you want to edit on the fly. You should get nice, natural looking results with that one. And last up, let's check out the video chops. OnePlus smartphones are normally pretty respectable in this regard. As you can see, it shoots 4K resolution by default, but you can actually bump that all the way up to 8K to match the likes of the S21 series. Otherwise, alternatively, if you leave it in 4K, you've now got the option of shooting at either 30, 60, or 120 frames per second. You've also got that Nightscape video option as well, but this only works at 1080p at 30 frames per second. Got a good bit of video portrait action if you're shooting a human subject, just to help blur out the background and help them stand out just like the standard portrait photo mode. And apparently the OnePlus 9 Pro will be very good in HDR style situations as well, with strong contrast, but I'll be fully testing out that camera tech for my in-depth review. Oh, and of course, can't forget the 16 megapixel front-facing camera using Sony's IMX471 sensor. You got that good old leaf shutter again. And yeah, I can see I'm really gonna enjoy taking selfies on this thing. So that right there, in a nutshell, is the OnePlus 9 Pro. Now, it'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Are you tempted by the Pro edition? I've also done a full unboxing of the standard OnePlus 9, and I'm doing a comparison of the OnePlus 9 and the Pro, so you can see exactly what the differences are between them, work out which one might be best for you if you're tempted. As I say, stay tuned for my in-depth review to see what I really think after slapping my sim in this bad boy for a good few days. And please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell if you haven't done it already. It means the world. Have yourselves a lovely rest of the week. Cheers, everyone. Love you.